Fellow Ghanaians, good morning. So last Saturday, for those of you who followed, the NDC held a primary to elect a parliamentary candidate ahead of the March 3 by-election that will ultimately replace the late MP for the Ayawaso East constituency. It was, as we know, a process that should have been about the renewal of the democratic process. Of course, after you lose a certain MP. But instead, that descended into a troubling situation that once again exposed how deeply vote buying has eaten into the soul of our internal party politics. This was not a matter of rumors. We saw it on camera in the full public view. Delegate filmed receiving television sets and other items. And in moments that best captures how normalized this practice has become, the eventual winner, Baba Jamal, openly admitted that he shared the television sets, even as he maintained that did not amount to vote buying. Of course, no one believes that. In the aftermath, the fallout was quite commendable. We saw the NDC caucus in Parliament itself calling for the annulment of the primary and a rerun of the election. At least there was some recognition instinctively that what happened was not just a minor breach, but a serious moral and public failure that could undermine the party's credibility, and at a time when it occupied the commanding heights of political power. The NDC set up a committee to investigate the events. Of course, some of us had our hopes raised that this would be a defining moment where we could see principle triumph over convenience. But after the deliberation, the NDC leadership yesterday decided to maintain Baba Jamal as its candidate for the by-election. Of course, they cited reasons ranging from time constraints, legal implications. And while this decision falls squarely within the party's prerogative, it is a major opportunity missed to send a clear, loud, and unambiguous message that vote buying will not be tolerated, no matter who benefits from it. This is not about demonizing one candidate or pretending that this problem is unique to the NDC, because all of us who have paid attention over the years know that virtually every internal election across all major political parties is drenched in money, gifts, inducements, and transactional loyalty, with candidates openly budgeting for how much each delegate must receive in cash or in kind, and with delegates themselves increasingly seeing their vote not as a trust, but as an asset that can be cashed in. The record is long and consistent, from constituency primaries to regional and national contests, where aspirants pay varying sums. They distribute phones, clothes, cash, appliances, and when losing candidates sometimes openly admit that they simply could not match the financial firepower of their rivals. And yet we continue as though all of this is shocking every time we see some of these videos surfacing, when we refuse to deal with the underlying system that invites this abuse. Fellow Ghanaians, if we are serious about confronting this rot, then we must be honest enough to admit that the delegate system, as currently structured, has completely outlived its usefulness, because concentrating power in the hands of a few hundred delegates makes it easy and quite rational for delegates to buy their influence, since the mathematics of corruption works perfectly in their favor. It does not take a genius to see that the surest and most effective way to break the stranglehold of money over internal party democracy is to decentralize and expand the electoral college. Because once you move from a few hundred delegates to tens of thousands of ordinary party members who have to vote in an internal election, the economics of vote buying will collapse under its own weight. There is no individual who can realistically buy the votes of 20,000 people spread across the constituency. The NDC itself demonstrated the logic of this approach when it opened up the internal election in 2015 to a broader membership. It was praised at the time as progressive and democratic, but the NDC later retreated back to this corrupt delegate system on the grounds that the party register had been infiltrated by non-members, a concern that is so frivolous and really that will not survive any scrutiny. Because in democratic organization, that issue could be solved not by shrinking participation and entrenching elite control. If you say your party was infiltrated and that was your issue, the task before the political parties is to clean the registers. You have to improve verification, strengthen membership identification, and invest in structures that will protect integrity. without sacrificing inclusiveness, rather than defaulting to a system that almost guarantees monetization and pretends to be surprised when money predictably demonstrates or dominates the outcome. Fellow Ghanaians, internal party elections are not private inconvenience with no public consequence, because the candidates they produce eventually come to govern all of us, make laws for us, and control our resources, which belongs to all of us. And when those candidates emerge from processes where the money they have determine their success, more than the ideas, competence, or conviction, we should not be shocked when governance itself becomes transactional. The decision by the NDC to proceed with its chosen candidate may be convenient procedurally, but politically and morally, it leaves a lingering sense that once again, principle was negotiable in this case. And that dangerous signal has already been sent that you can always buy votes without consequences. Fellow Ghanaians, this should become a moment for all political parties, not just the NDC, to confront the very uncomfortable truth that the delegate system has become a factory for corruption, and that unless bold and decisive reforms are undertaken, we'll continue to recycle the same complaints, watch the same videos, see the same hollow condemnations, while we do nothing to change the structure that makes vote buying inevitable. Fellow Ghanaians, our democracy cannot survive on outrage alone. It requires structural courage. And if we truly want internal party contest that reflects the will of the values of our people, rather than the money and the purchasing power of aspirants, the path is clear. You have to expand participation. You need to abolish the delegate stranglehold and return internal democracy to the people that it claims to serve. Until that happens, we'll keep mistaking internal elections for democratic exercises, even as they increasingly resemble auctions. And we'll continue to wonder why politics is feeling so distant from principle, when in truth, we designed it that way. Good morning, fellow Ghanaians.